Thank you. So my name is Simon Hollingworth. Delighted to come and talk to you about the Magna Carta. I need to say I'm not a historian, I'm not an academic, not a politician, and I'm not even studying anything. I'm a local creative producer working on loads of different arts projects who, despite my very lovely logo, can't even juggle. I also describe myself as a presenter, not a creative presenter, hence the need for lectern and notes. So apologise, bear with me, please. Thank you. Before I started working on a project called 1215 Today, which I will come back to, I'm happy to admit that my knowledge of Magna Carta was loosely based around this building in Leith. So you might say, what gives me the right to come and talk to you about this world-famous historic document? Well, number one, I was asked to. Fair enough. Number two, I live in a country where, thanks in part to the Magna Carta, my right as a private citizen to freedom of speech is enshrined in law. So I can say what I like. The right to say what I like at LSST may be governed under different rules, so I'm not going to push my luck. The Magna Carta was created in the year 1215. It was a document that King John, a nasty piece of work by anyone's calculations, was forced to sign by his powerful barons to attempt to limit his own powers. If you want to find out more about King John, there are plenty of films and plays, one by Sir William Shakespeare, who's already been mentioned today. None of them show him in a particularly brilliant light, it has to be said. I particularly recommend the Disney version if you haven't seen it. It's absolutely genius. The Magna Carta is often spoken about as the first legal document that protected ordinary citizens. But in fact, the rebellious barons who were instrumental in making the king sign the document weren't interested in peasants at all. Really, it was just about protecting their rights and interests, i.e. the rights and interests of the very wealthiest people in the country. Nonetheless, it was the first attempt to ever commit to paper, well, parchment, vellum, the rights of individuals. Now, in 1217, 800 years ago this year, a lesser-known document called the Charter of the Forest, sometimes referred to as Magna Carta's little brother, was created that really was the first attempt to protect ordinary people's rights, especially in terms of land and property. And some of you may know, later this year, in Lincoln, the only place in the world where there's a document of the original copy of the Magna Carta and the Charter of the Forest will be marking 800 years since that document was released. Magna Carta, King John soon reneged on the original Magna Carta document and continued to fight with his barons, but in fact died a year later in October 1216. Now, again, as you may know, throughout history, the Magna Carta has come in and out of political fashion, but has never been forgotten. It has been amended, it's been republished, and on many occasions it's inspired the constitutions of other countries, including, most famously, the United States of America. Only 3 of the 63 clauses in the Magna Carta are still enshrined in law, though, I don't know about you, but I find it incredible that anything written 800 years ago is still law, but it is true. One is around freedom and the independence of the Church of England. Another is about upholding the ancient liberties and free customs of the City of London and other cities, towns, boroughs and ports. They were ancient even then, 800 years ago. But the other one is amazing in that it is generally regarded to have established the right to trial by jury, a legal construct that obviously we all know and is the basis of judicial systems in most countries around the world today. And this is the wording. To no one will we sell, to no one deny or delay right or justice. No free man shall be seized or imprisoned or stripped of his rights or possessions or outlawed or exiled, nor will we proceed with force against him except by the lawful judgment of his equals or by the law of the land. It does sound fair, as though it's written for everybody, but it is free men he's talking about, which is what they're talking about, which is slightly different. Still, powerful legal stuff written 800 years ago. The Magna Carta's relevance and place in history is assured, and as we all know, history can teach us so much, and in theory helps avoid the mistakes of the past. As Edmund Burke said, those who don't know history are destined to repeat it. Now, we all know that the last 12 months particularly have been extraordinary times in world politics. Wars, acts of terrorism, shock outcomes of elections and referenda across the globe have all highlighted the need to re-examine our rights and freedoms and for informed debate and discussion. Learning about the Magna Carta has certainly, for me, revitalised my interest in history and politics and in understanding about the rights of individuals. I've become fascinated by how people get their opinions and views and what matters to them most and why. The internet and social media has changed how we consume information, ideas, facts and opinions beyond recognition. People have the right to think and say what they want, but social media, it seems to me, seems to encourage us all to express strong views and opinions without necessarily having to back them up with any evidence at all. I'm reminded of the American author and poet Charles Bukowski, who famously said, "The problem with the world is that the intelligent people are full of doubt, while the stupid people are full of confidence." Discuss. I'm lucky enough to be working at the moment with the international artist Attain Patel and a group of young people from Lincoln, including several from this school and I think a couple from this room, on a project called 1215 Today, which I mentioned at the beginning, which is inspired by the 800th anniversary of the Magna Carta. This is Attain. The project has allowed young people to work with artists to create online work that has raised questions about our rights, the space we use and how we contemplate. We have now started looking at identity and assumptions. This is our first workshop last week. And whose voices we hear loudest and why. In an attempt to galvanise young people to think about their own views, freedoms, rights, and to consider what they might do differently to change the world. The group will be creating an artwork with Attain that will be shown in October this year as part of Frequency 2017, Lincoln's Festival of Digital Culture, that takes place in October, and takes place in October, and also we hope will be shared extensively online. We have no idea yet what the artwork will look like, what art forms it will use, or at this stage even exactly what the group will be trying to say. But what we do know, we're going to do everything we can to spread our message around the world in ways that previous generations couldn't even contemplate. You can never guarantee anything will go viral, but we're going to make a damn good go of it. And the wonderful thing is that we'll be doing all this work with thanks, at least in part, to the Magna Carta itself. I'm going to finish by showing you a short clip from a film called The Empty Throne. The film itself is 15 minutes long, but don't worry, I'm only going to show you about 4 minutes of it. The film is made in the style of a living painting and is a fictional account of the run-up to the signing of the Magna Carta in 1215. It was made in Lincoln with local actors and filmmakers on a single day in May 2015. And this section from the very end is a call to arms from one of the barons who has just been beaten up by the king's men for daring to disagree with the king's authority, and is addressed to the young people of today. In other words, it's addressed to you.
Justice. He speaks of justice. What does he know of justice? What do any of us know of justice when we live in such a world as this? A world where our own human nature is compromised, overruled, destroyed. And day after day, man turns on man, fueling the endless wheel of dissent and disease and corruption. You, each and every one of you, what would you do? What would you do for the sake of your freedom? To fight for the very things you believe to be right, to be true? Do you look back on us and think we are nothing? Mere figments of the past, conjured at will by your imagination, as dead as the painted faces of a tableau on a wall. Look again. Look beyond what lies above, see into our souls and see that we are alive. We're alive because you are alive, and because of the things that we must come to do. The war that we will wage to protect those basic rights that make us who we are. You will look back and you will see that what we did for ourselves. I'm not too proud. I am not ashamed. Because it was all we could do. We fought for ourselves and our own rights because it's all we knew to do. We didn't know if the world would ever be a truly freeborn place. Look around you. There's so much we have gained in 800 years, and yet still so far to create a future truly free of pain, of persecution, of prejudice. And now that future is in your hands. A future for you to make with your words and your deeds. And the power of your imagination. The power of belief. Because if people like you and I choose to believe, then we choose to fight for something worth more than anything else in this life. The dream of a better tomorrow. Our tomorrow was not perfect, but it was possible because of the things that we did, the choices we made. Now is your turn. Now is your time, and I charge you today. What's your dream? What kind of a future do you seek? What will you do today for the good of tomorrow? And as you look on us mere shadows, think on this. How will the world remember you? How will history remember you? How will you change the world?
Powerful stuff. It's maybe a slightly romanticised version of the rebellious barons, given what I said at the beginning about protecting their own interests. But nonetheless, I hope you feel it speaks to you, and you are the future, you are the hope, and you can change the world. Those are the last three things he said, and just whatever else, your brains must be full of ideas, information, facts, opinions, suggestions today, and especially the other days too. I would urge you to remember the extraordinary story of Magna Carta and remember the Baron's final words. How will the world remember you? How will history remember you? How will you